Okay, welcome to the AdaptX podcast, where we have conversations with individuals building accessible businesses, advocating for inclusion, or excelling in adaptive sports. Our intention is never to speak on behalf of those with disabilities, but to provide a platform to share their ideas and amplify their voice to a more accessible world. Today, I'm joined by Alexia Michitti, a senior SUNY Oneonta, and the founder of Embrace LLC, a pioneering adaptive clothing company for people with limb differences. Born without her right hand, Alexia's personal experiences drive her mission to create innovative solutions for adaptive fashion. She's also a motivational speaker, sharing her journey to inspire and empower others. In the sports arena, Alexia serves as co-captain of the U.S. women's amputee soccer team, where she was a standout player in the inaugural team at the September 2023 event in Poland, earning game MVP honors. Alexia is set to compete with her team in the first ever Women's Amputee World Cup this November. When did you first get involved in amputee soccer?
So I was introduced to amputee soccer my freshman year of college. I did an interview. I was a sports media major at the time at Ithaca College, and my professor encouraged everyone to do an interview with someone in the sports field. I was told that I had to interview Eli Wolf, and I didn't know who this guy was, and I just got on the call and I interviewed him, and then about 2 months later, it was December, and he reached out to me asking if I'd be interested to speak as a student athlete with a disability on the U.S. Disability Soccer Month meeting that they had. It was a huge event that they had. It was a presentation that took place. So I spoke for 5 minutes talking about what it was like being a college athlete with a disability. And the president of the American Amputee Soccer Association DM'd me on the Zoom call. And he was like, hey, you should try amputee soccer out. And at the time I was playing college soccer, but I didn't know what amputee soccer was. So I drove down to Long Island. I played the field my whole life. And my parents were like, you're really going to go and play in goal? You know? And I was like, just try it. If it goes bad, it went bad. Like, at least I tried. It went good. So that's how I got kind of involved into where I am now. It's definitely been a process to where I am with the women's team and everything, but yeah, it just started with a quick little intro. Yeah.
Did you feel like playing parasport or amputee soccer was like less than, I guess, the division collegiate sport you were playing? And were you ever resistant to kind of like go to a different level of the sport or a different structure of the sport?
So it definitely, for me, it was an adjustment.
Yeah.
You know, I think the opportunities that were available with amputee soccer were a lot more desirable than being a college athlete. You know, I had the opportunity to play at Gillette Stadium that spring with the New York Metro team that we have, and then the New England team we played at halftime at the game. So that was definitely crazy. It was 30,000 people there. So definitely it was a nice way to reintroduce soccer to me, because I was at a point with my, I want to say, able-bodied soccer career where I was like getting burned out and I was ready for either a new change or to be done. So it helped me re-fall in love with soccer again, definitely.
Yeah. For those who aren't familiar with the sport, how is the composition of the team structured?
So the goalkeepers are missing all or part of their arm, and if you do have a lot of your arm, like me, you have to have your arm tucked in your shirt and taped to your body when you're playing. And then the field players are missing all or part of at least one of their legs, and they play on forearm crutches, and that's how they run. So definitely an adjustment, definitely different than what I'm used to, but it's pretty cool how they play, and they play really hard too.
Yeah, no, they do. And with our with the 5K we hosted a few months ago, the Bionic Project came out and they did a amputee soccer showcase, and it was really cool to see some of my like high school soccer athletes and stuff like trying it out and like on the crutches, and Nico out on the crutches as well, and just like how different it is, and not that it's and viewing it not as a lesser sport, but just viewing it as a different.
It's different.
Like, yeah, it's just different.
Definitely.
That's all it is. But that doesn't make them less of athletes. I mean, Nico's an incredible athlete, and so many of the other athletes in the U.S. amputee soccer pipeline are as well. Have you seen the game grow over the last few years?
Definitely. So when I started playing, I was like one of the only girls on the team. There was only one other girl on the team at the time. I was just practicing with them. I went to Gillette Stadium again the following year after the fall or spring of 2022. And I was asked and invited to try out for the national team, the National Amputee Soccer Team. So at the time it was the national team because it was co-ed. And so I said, okay, like, what is the tryout for? And they're like, oh, we're going to Poland in September. You can try out. And, you know, was the only girl that was trying out. I was a little, not uncomfortable. Like, everyone's very nice, you know, but, you know, it's a different setting than what I'm used to. Yeah. And I said, what about the women? You don't have a women's team? Like, they had a camp that happened in California. I was one of 4 players that were there. 3 other women went. And they said, if we get a team, we'll send the women to Poland too. But right now it's just the national team. I said, okay. So I went to the tryout, and they had enough people who were interested for the women's team come together, and I was able to play with both the national team and first ever women's national team in Poland last September. I was the first player to ever be rostered on both teams, which was pretty cool, in history, which is pretty cool. So we lost 1-0 to Poland, the women's team did. Some of the players got to Poland and had never played soccer before, so I give all of my teammates credit because they tried the best that they could. Like, we all just gave it our all. It was an incredible moment to be part of. So, yeah, it was amazing. But
I guess the strategy and the cohesiveness of, like, playing as a team just probably wasn't there yet.
No.
Until you guys have more opportunities to practice and stuff.
Yeah.
I know Nico's done a ton of legwork in terms of having clinics and and he's traveling all over to do so. So it's probably just like anything, I guess, a slow development.
Yeah.
Gaining traction and hosting these clinics and seminars in different communities, introducing people to the sport.
Yeah.
Were there other para sports or amputee sports that you've tried, or soccer kind of it?
Soccer is like it. I did try wheelchair basketball recently and pickleball, which was pretty cool. But soccer was the main one.
Do you think there's a path to it becoming a Paralympic sport? I
hope so. You know, it'd be awesome to see athletes competing at that level. Yeah, I hope so.
Absolutely. Obviously, you've been a competitive athlete your whole life, so fitness and strength and conditioning has probably been a part of that preparation. What have you had to do to accommodate your limb difference in the gym? Since a lot of our audience are fitness professionals that might be interested in supporting people with limb difference, I guess what advice could you give them to do so? Maybe share some of your personal experience. Like, I guess the first thing that I think of is being able to grip a barbell or grip dumbbells. Like, yeah, I guess that's a lot of loaded questions in one, but maybe what accommodations have you made in the gym to allow yourself to train?
So I have gotten an activity-specific prosthetic. That has definitely been an adjustment over time. I got my first one when I was in 8th grade. That was when I started noticing that I was falling behind physically. I was getting tackled very hard, like very hard on the field, playing able-bodied soccer. And I got my first activity-specific prosthetic. It did the job, but it maybe could handle like 10-pound weights, and that's where I was at. But I was also in 8th grade, you know? So over time, I got my next prosthetic, and I kind of helped design that, and it put a lot of pressure on above my elbow. But I was doing seated rows, prosthetic went flying across the gym. So that was, it worked, but it didn't work for that. So now I'm very happy with the one that I have now. It has a harness that goes up and over my elbow, and I can do seated rows, I can bench, I can do deadlifts, all the things. Some suggestions I do have if a prosthetic isn't very accessible is plates. So, like for me, I can fit a plate over my arm. So that has been a way that I've done like shoulder press, stuff like that. Obviously, be careful because it's weight and you don't want to hurt yourself. But another thing too that I've seen people do is use like resistance bands, like the bigger ones, and they loop them around the barbell and kind of use that as a support as well to do deadlifting and stuff like that. So definitely have a spotter though if you do get a prosthetic. I remember my freshman year at college, I was in the weight room and I was bench pressing, and I was very happy that someone was there because I broke the entire attachment off of my prosthetic because I was getting stronger, so it was great. But yeah, definitely play around with it, and I would definitely give it, if you're thinking about getting an activity-specific prosthetic, I would I highly recommend trying it because there's so many different attachments you can get too. So
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe we can film some examples in
yeah,
the gym after this, and then I can just link like that video so people can see a visual of it.
yeah.
We are grateful for the support of our first show sponsor. Resolution Fitness offers leading brand health club equipment and accessories for residential and commercial use. In addition to traditional exercise equipment, they specialize in adaptive fitness products and wheelchair accessible machines. If you're interested in outfitting your fitness facility or home gym to be more accessible, visit www.resolutionfitness.ca or the link in the show notes below. So I guess there's really no physical barriers to you accessing a gym in the way that maybe someone with a visual impairment or a mobility impairment using like a wheelchair has. But have you had any negative experiences in a gym, and maybe just so people can prevent those?
I haven't. I've had a lot of people just come up to me if I'm wearing my prosthetic and they're like, "You're so inspiring. This is amazing," and it's nice to hear that sometimes too because it's like
Yeah.
even if it looks like it's great on the outside, mentally you could be having a really hard time trying to figure something out. This hasn't always been, I guess, a positive thing. There's always obstacles that you have to overcome, but I haven't had anything. People have been pretty accommodating, which I'm fortunate about.
That's a conversation that we've had with a lot of the guests, is the idea of being viewed as inspirational or motivational. In our space, it's called like inspiration porn, I guess, where like everything with someone with a disability does has to be viewed as sensational. Does that ever, like, I know you said it's a positive most of the time, but are you comfortable being called inspirational? Do you want to just be considered normal? Like, kind of where do you fall on that spectrum?
So it's kind of funny. Like in the beginning, I was like, oh, this is nice. Like I was in high school, people were posting articles and stuff that I was an inspiration and it was very nice of them. But as I've gotten older, I'm just like, I'm living my life, not. If someone does view it as inspirational, that's great, but I'm just trying to go day to day, and I don't think everything you can do can be inspirational, and maybe for some people, but yeah, I mean, it has changed since I've gotten older. You're just trying to live your life.
I think one of the important things is maybe the context of it. I know Nico said it gets tiring when he's like in a grocery store and people are talking to him in the grocery store. Or like when you're doing something exceptional, it can be inspirational and motivational, but maybe not everything has to be praised.
Yeah.
Because I think oftentimes the person who's giving the compliment just wants to feel better about themselves. Like, oh, I'm praising this person, but it's not. Sometimes it's out of context and not actually genuine.
Yeah.
So and I know the thing with the Paralympics is it puts disability on a pedestal, but it also almost implies that you have to do exceptional things with your disability to be appreciated.
Yeah.
And hopefully people just appreciate the differences and the everyday stuff just as much.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of an interesting balance, I guess, with Paralympics gaining more traction, not putting people with various levels of disabilities on an hierarchy based on their athletic performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's something that's interesting.
Yeah.
Try to normalize disability and not always have expectations that they have to be elite athletes.
Yeah. I think another thing too that I've come across a lot too is like people feeling sorry. Like, I don't know, Nico might have touched on it, but there's nothing to be sorry about. Like, this is my life, and although you may see it as an inspiration or whatever, I'm doing good, so.
In what scenarios do you use your prosthetic, and at what points do you not wear it?
So I only wear it in the gym. I have used it for jump roping when I was on the tail end of high school. I don't use it for jump roping anymore. Maybe I'll get back into it. I also had an attachment for badminton, which probably could serve as like pickleball or tennis and stuff like that. But I do not use a prosthetic in my everyday life unless I'm in the gym, which is every day. But
what day-to-day tasks, I guess, do you have to complete in a different manner? I guess things like typing. Like, I guess what like day-to-day accommodations do you make?
So for typing, I did do like the Lily Waters one-handed typing program when I was in elementary school, which Lily Waters was Jim Abbott's secretary, so she came up with it. So I was fortunate enough to be at an elementary school that bought the program for me, and I did have like a 504 growing up. I still have one in college. For typing now, though, you can use voice to text. You even in school, you can ask someone to be your scribe. I get fatigue a lot in my hand. It's the only one I have, so I'm using it every day. And so I use voice to text a lot. I can drive a car, no problem. There are cars now that have the buttons for like the shifting gears. That is a little bit hard because I have to reach across my body, but I've adapted to that. For shoes, I like to wear Vans a lot. I'm not wearing them now, but those are just easy slip-on shoes. Yes, I think I've adapted a lot. If I do come across a problem, just ask for help.
Yeah. Any other assistive technology that you found to be useful? Or you covered a lot of them, but
Yeah, I think typing's a big one. For notes, I guess, like even for school. Oh, this is a good one. So for jewelry, I've learned to put my earrings on, but my necklace is not like this. But there's magnets now that you can get. So there's like the little hook that you have to put jewelry on. That's very hard for me. I can't hold it in 4 fingers, to put it together. So if you take your jewelry to a jeweler, they can replace that with pretty strong magnets so you can put jewelry on easier. That's one thing. It's not an everyday thing, but I always tell people that because that's a big thing.
Still kind of an everyday thing, using
Yeah.
a zipper or
Yeah.
Putting jewelry on, stuff like that, for sure. Putting shoes on.
Yeah.
Tying shoes, etc. You say you can tie shoes?
I can't tie my shoes. Yeah.
Since the podcast is kind of fitness specific, we tend to ask the guests what they think could be done to make like fitness as a whole more accessible for people with disabilities. So like what gyms could do more effectively to support people with disabilities. And I know you said you haven't had any negative experiences personally, but is there anything that you would like to see in like the fitness landscape? Maybe it's representation of disability or accessibility.
So one thing that I've always thought would be awesome is like an adaptive gym, like equipment that is literally made for someone with a limb difference or anything like that. I don't know what that would look like, but simple things, just even like the seated row and stuff. If someone can't use a prosthetic, how could something like that still work with balance? I know for me specifically, like my arms are different, like they have different muscle build off, and I think over time, just working to see how you can have that balance between your muscles get flattened out, I guess. More symmetrical, because that's a health thing down the road that I'm sure we'll have to deal with, but yeah.
Did you go to PT or anything specific to your limb difference? OT, PT?
Yeah, I had to do OT when I was in elementary school. I didn't need to go, but they had to do it. I did PT only when I got prosthetics, because they have like the mandatory PT for like a couple days after you get it to teach you how to use it. But I haven't had to do anything since then, specifically for my arm.
Were there any characteristics of like the PTs, OTs, strength and conditioning coaches that you worked with that you found to be most positive, or like anything that stood out that made them great coaches to you?
I think just accommodating and like the patience, from training for soccer when I was younger all the way to college level at Ithaca, like the strength and conditioning coach at Ithaca was great. Like they had a bunch of students like training to become athletic trainers, and he was like, watch her, like you might never come across someone like this, and they were very accommodating. We had to do pull-ups, and I was like, I can't do that. And they're like, you're gonna do that. And I was like, okay. And like someone stood there and helped me. I managed to do like 2 pull-ups, I think. Yeah, everyone's been patience is like the big thing, because like, it's frustrating. You don't know how long it could take me or someone else to figure out how to do something, and you just gotta be patient.
What are you most excited for in the coming years for amputee soccer or your competitive career as well?
So in November, the women's team will be competing in the first ever Women's Amputee Soccer World Cup. It will be in Colombia from November 2nd to the 11th. U.S. women's amputee soccer team is still taking donations if you're interested in supporting. So that's a huge thing right now the team's getting ready for. We have camp at the end of the month. It's the last time we'll be seeing each other before we meet in Colombia. So that's definitely childhood dream coming true, just being an example and being there for these younger girls, hopefully, and boys or whoever's watching, to have someone to look up to. That's the biggest thing right now. There's the Amp Cup coming up in the Boston area, which is awesome. There's a lot of youth programs growing right now for amputee soccer, so it's definitely growing. So there's lots of stuff to look forward to, but for me, it's definitely the World Cup.
Absolutely. So if people are interested in following you, we'll put them in the show notes, but most active on Instagram, LinkedIn.
Yeah, for me personally, probably Instagram. I'm posting all the stuff for our team on there. The U.S. Women's Amputee Soccer Team has a page. You can follow them as well. They will be posting stuff on there with more information too.
Awesome. Well, Alexia, thanks so much for coming out to Massachusetts and recording an episode with us. Looking forward to sharing this.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the AdaptX podcast. Our effort to amplify the ideas of our guests and create more inclusive and accessible industries is futile unless these episodes reach a larger audience. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please leave us a rating or a review on whichever platform you use. And if you would like to learn more about AdaptX, the course that we teach to health and fitness professionals and the projects that our organization is working on, you can subscribe to our newsletter through our website, www.adaptx.org. Until next Monday.